What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today we're going to talk about our government. We're going to talk about the Department of Labor and its need for a new head honcho. I saw an article in The Hill, and it discussed the vacancy and the candidates that are up for the position, and it also discussed who they thought was a good candidate, and I happen to agree wholeheartedly. Now, this is an opinion piece, and so when you read an opinion piece, that's the writer's opinion and not necessarily the outlet that you read it on. This comes from The Hill. The writer's name is John Logan, but I gotta say, John Logan's on point. All right. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, ring the notification bell, drop some comments, share the videos, ask your questions, do all the good stuff. Let's interact. All right. Now, without further ado, here we go. Sarah Nelson should be President Biden's next labor secretary. This was from February 23rd. So, if you don't know who Sarah Nelson is, you should probably look her up. She is an amazing international president for the American Association of, I believe it's flight attendants. But they'll talk about it in the article. Here we go. Ready? Earlier this month, Labor Secretary Marty Walsh surprised most Washington insiders by deciding to quit the cabinet to head to National Hockey League Players Association. In truth, Walsh has been a disappointment to most labor observers. Under his leadership, the Labor Department has kept remarkably low profile during a period of almost unprecedented grassroots union activism. Now, if you watch my channel, you know that I keep on harping that we are in the midst of a crazy amount of labor activity and organizing, and they're right. Logan is right. The Department of Labor has been kind of a no-show when it comes to organizing and helping organizing. The Walsh Labor Department came up with no major new initiatives, and after more than 2 years, it still lacks a confirmed head of the critically important wage and hour division. Worse still, Walsh was largely missing in action during workers' attempts to organize at major anti-union corporations such as Starbucks and Amazon. Facts. These young workers have been doing it largely on their own at Amazon, especially at Amazon, and at Starbucks. He even told Starbucks workers in Buffalo, who formed the first union at the coffee behemoth in December 2021, that it would be wrong to speak out on the side of their union fight against a company that has fired over 100 workers for union activism and committed hundreds more unlawful acts. It would be wrong to speak out on the side of their union fight. So he was telling them, I can't speak out as Department of Labor head on your side against this union busting company. Can you believe that? I can, because it's true and it happened. And Walsh's greatest achievement as Labor Secretary was to negotiate a settlement in last year's national rail dispute that failed to include paid sick leave, which ended up alienating large sections of the labor movement, including most of its activist base. Again, factual statement there. That railroad negotiation was horrible, and Walsh was definitely a part of that. Walsh's alleged skills for bringing both sides together were largely useless when what was really needed was a labor secretary who would stand up against the greed, lack of concern for public safety, and hyper-exploitative business model of the nation's largest railroad companies. I can't disagree. Farewell, Marty. We hardly knew ye. Along with Deputy Secretary of Labor Julie Su, former Clinton Secretary of Labor Robert Reich, who I also like, and several former Obama-era labor technocrats, Sarah Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA, is one of the frontrunners for the next labor secretary. She would be amazing, trying to tell you. Former Director of Labor and Workforce Development in California, Su is likely is the likely favorite for the position, and she would be the only Asian American member of Biden's cabinet. Stanford and Harvard educated Sue has many supporters, especially among fellow elite educated labor advocates, and a stellar record in California, but she has also been an integral part of the thus far disappointing Biden Labor Department. She lacks a national platform, and like Walsh, she would be unlikely to be able to establish a high profile as Secretary for Labor. In contrast, Sarah Nelson ticks all those boxes. Here are 5 reasons why she is the best choice for the next labor secretary. Number 1, Nelson is by a country mile the most charismatic of the potential candidates for the cabinet position. Since the start of the pandemic, I've been following Sarah Nelson since the start of the pandemic, so I can say that it's true what I'm about to read to you. Since the start of the pandemic, she has developed a national platform larger than that of any other labor leader, even though she leads the relatively small flight attendants union, which has a membership of about 50,000. Here's the thing, fam. Here's the thing. The Department of Labor would benefit from a lead person who understands the environment that we are in, as far as organizing, as far as activism, as far as inequality, and really has a grasp of what working people need in the moment. I don't think it would behoove working folks to have a Secretary of Labor who was like established already and been in those cushy jobs already and has been largely out of the real meat and potatoes of the fight for labor. And most of the folks who are being nominated, again, I like Robert Reich also, are not aware of really the fight for what working people are going through and what the environment is right now. I have a theory that I think Lonnie Stevenson is probably going to be also nominated, or is also a candidate that wasn't named here. And I would say Sarah Nelson would probably be even a much better choice than even Lonnie Stevenson, who many would say is just like most of the others who are established labor leaders already, who are kind of sitting in the position of where they were already. Now, Lonnie Stevenson has retired. God bless him in his retirement. And who knows if Biden were to call him, if he would come out of retirement to be head of the Department of Labor. But I think Sarah Nelson would be the best choice. Unlike the other leading contenders, Nelson could use her position to explain week after week on national media outlets why unions and collective bargaining are essential to getting a better deal for the American workers. Over 70% of the American public approves of unions. This is the highest figure since 1965. I did a video on that too. This is not the time for timidity or technocrats. The last thing the Biden administration needs is yet another uncharismatic labor secretary who, like Walsh, will come and go without barely making a ripple. I agree. This ain't the moment to have someone up there who's going to want to endorse the status quo and keep on with the status quo and the status quo. We don't need status quo. We need a fighter. We need someone who's going to be in there vociferously fighting for working people. Nelson is not afraid to stand up to the nation's plutocrats who violate workers' rights and then use their wealth to exploit the weakness of labor laws and ensure they pay no price. Billionaire CEOs such as Starbucks' Howard Schultz, Amazon's Jeff Bezos, and Tesla's Elon Musk have repeatedly ridden roughshod over workers' legal right to join a union. Last week, Tesla fired almost 40 autopilot workers in Buffalo, New York, the day after the workers had announced a union organizing campaign with Tesla Workers United. Nelson could use the cabinet office to ensure that egregious lawbreakers pay a cost in terms of national reputational damage, and she could push the nation's most pro-union president to speak out more regularly on endemic corporate malfeasance. All good, very good points. Nelson is capable, this is number 3. Nelson is capable of inspiring young workers who are at the forefront of revitalizing the labor movement. Again, embrace them young folks. Do not shun them young folks. Embrace them young folks. And who are crying out for the kind of bold, unapologetic leadership that she would offer. A lot has changed since Marty Walsh was first nominated. Over the past 18 months, we have seen successful union organizing campaigns at Starbucks, Amazon, Trader Joe's, Apple, REI, and others, all led by young workers. Nelson understands how to communicate with these kinds of workers more than any other labor or political leader in the country, and she is already the de facto president of the most vibrant wing of the labor movement. She has also actually worked for a living as a flight attendant, whereas most of the other contenders have spent a lifetime as political appointees. Didn't I just say that? Elected officials, political appointees, elected officials, or in elite academic institutions. As labor secretary, Nelson would have a platform to inspire young activists who are critical to the future of organized labor. Number 4, and we're almost to the end of this. Number 4, Nelson might even inspire some of the languid union establishment to offer real leadership and support the self-organizing efforts of young workers. Amid this historic current organizing wave, most of the labor establishment has been happy to sit on the sidelines. Amen. They don't believe the young workers at Starbucks and Amazon can succeed. Facts. They lack the fortitude to support efforts to take on the wealthy anti-union corporations, and they appear satisfied to hold on to what they have. Damn, I feel that. And mind you, I'm an active labor union member. I'm active, and I feel this. Nelson, in contrast, has been the labor movement's most prominent supporter of Starbucks Workers United and the Amazon Labor Union. And along with the new Teamsters president, Sean O'Brien, who won because of one member, one vote, the only labor leader to appear repeatedly with their young activists. With a different, more engaged labor establishment, Nelson could have been president of the AFL-CIO, but the nation's largest unions will always opt for a safe chief executive rather than one who might challenge them to provide bold leadership. However, even if the labor establishment isn't yet ready to embrace Nelson's talents, the Biden administration should do so. And she, in turn, might succeed in breathing new life into some parts of the union hierarchy. I agree with that too. Number 5, along with Senator Bernie Sanders, the new chair of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee, Nelson's commitment to get a fairer deal for American workers is already well established. The last 2 years could have been quite different if Biden had nominated Sanders for the Secretary of Labor instead of then Boston Mayor Marty Walsh, which makes me upset because had Sanders been the Department of Labor head, we would have had a starkly different last 2 years organizing. Sanders has said he no longer wants the cabinet position, but he supports nominating Nelson, makes sense, who he called a leading voice for worker rights and a very strong communicator of progressive values, whose experience sets her up for success in this job. With Sanders as head of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee and Nelson as the Secretary of Labor, Democrats could stand up for American workers, and repair their tarnished reputation with labor activists. That'd be new. So far, Joe Biden has largely failed to live up to his pledge to be the most pro-union president in American history. This nomination process gives him the opportunity to show which side he's on. At a recent Open Markets Institute event, Nelson read the last lines from the autobiography of legendary labor organizer Mother Jones, probably a first for a U.S. union president in many decades, and ended with a rousing solidarity forever. She is the Secretary of Labor we need at this pivotal moment in the history of American workers. And I couldn't agree more. Who is John Logan, who wrote this article? It says that John Logan is professor and director of labor and employment studies at San Francisco State University. I agree with everything in this article about Sarah Nelson. She's an incredible labor leader and would make a fantastic Department of Labor selection. So Biden, make the right choice and pick Sarah Nelson. Don't fumble this, man. Don't fumble this, Joe. Do the right thing. Y'all keep in mind, the fight is not left and right. It is up and down. It's going to take solidarity, class solidarity, to win always. Each one teach one. Get out there and reach one. And remember, there can be no union without you and I. Front and center. Let's get it. Peace out.